Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. Now,
Hey, Sandy, thanks for
yeah. Oop, I've got an echo. Sorry, guys. Great to see you. I hope you like the opening for your beautiful presentation. So it's Tony's night. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, Sandy. That was actually a gorgeous intro. It was very beautiful, very well done. That was great.
Good, good. Well, let's hope that everything goes well with this. It's pretty cool. You put together some show, and we have a lot of people joining us in the audience. Hello, Jim and Scott. They're all saying hi to you, and Rich, Diana, and Matt is modding, and Kim is modding, and truly aghast. Oh, she's got to take a walk. Well, take a walk or watch it later. You can watch it later, but or come listen. By the time you come in, you'll probably still be on. Okay, so I'm gonna hand it over to Antonio tonight. He's just gonna. I'm producing. He's directing. He's hosting. He's the star. He's the brain. Welcome.
Thanks, Sandy. So tonight we're going to talk about a short presentation I put together, the mission to Mars, the Last Great Folly. I wanted to put this presentation together because there has been increasingly a lot of excitement around this idea of developing a lunar base and eventually developing a human habitation on Mars. And so I wanted to kind of dispel some of the more fantastic belief around the notion of human colonization of Mars. Now, to be clear, before we get started, do I believe that humans will develop a ship or some sort of vehicle that is capable of getting humans to Mars? Yes. Do I believe that humans will develop some type of scientific base or development? Yes. The
Wow.
issue here is I do not believe that humans will, in our lifetime, ever develop anything like a community or a habitat on Mars. And in fact, I think that the possibility of doing that is beyond um, not even just 100 or 200 or 500 years out. That may be something that would be part of some sort of technological explosion beyond anything that we have here. And I'll talk a little bit more about that toward the end of the presentation. So, without any further ado, Cindy, let's get into it.
Okay, let's start the show. He's got some cool stuff here, guys, and enjoy. We're starting the show.
So, there's a number of reasons why going to Mars seems increasingly prudent. Of course, for this community, the first and foremost, the premier crisis that our planet faces is the climate crisis, a crisis that is increasing by the day, a crisis that is existential in nature and has the potentiality of course, destroying human civilization.
Yeah.
Uh, but we also face several other crises. We face, obviously, overdevelopment and consumption of the environment due to affluent, industrialized human populations. We face biospheric degradation, sea level rise, as aforementioned, about climate change, toxification of the planet, plastic leaching, high tech war, and the possibility of nuclear annihilation. Of course, all of these arrangements here on Earth threaten the potentiality for our species to continue on into the future and makes the prospects of going to a planet like Mars seem pursuable. Unfortunately, though, the crises here on Earth do not justify the folly of going to Mars.
Right.
Same. Right. Go to the next one.
Seems like folly to me.
So the next one, if you can.
Yes, sir.
So there's a lot of different problems that are presented with this idea of going to Mars, and we're going to talk to and address some of those issues. Of course, there's a plethora, so we're not going to go through all of them, but some of the key major components of any possible mission to Mars. So, one of the first major issues that a possible future humanity would have to deal with, or present humanity possibly, is engineering. Of course, there's a lot of engineering challenges that go with getting Mars. The first challenge, obviously, is developing a vehicle that would be able to transport human food, water, energy, infrastructure, and other habitation cargo to the planet. The mission would also include building a Martian habitat that would be able to produce food, recycle water, produce water, and effectively eliminate waste, and also radiation shielding. Now, put a fairly, let's say, rudimentary Mars base as the picture here because I wanted our audience to see something that seems like it would be within our reach. Um, but this is, in of itself, I think, folly and fantasy. I think this would be this is not something that we will likely see. Maybe a solar array setup like this, maybe some type of landing module or pad, but certainly a human base on the surface of Mars. When we talk about the radiation, we'll talk about why that's not going to be possible. Um, but there's a lot of challenges. Most people don't realize this, but most of the space missions that astronauts go on are conducted within low Earth orbit, or right outside of the low Earth orbit perimeter. And so, this idea that we have even the vehicles capable of making it a human mission to Mars is really going to be challenging. Remember, humans are not robots. They need space to lay down and to congregate and use the bathroom and eat and exercise. And right now, there just isn't any vehicle like that for even one person. I mean, the closest thing that we have to that in space right now is the ISS, which actually is actually going to need to be refunded, but that's another issue. And the ISS isn't going to Mars, right? So that's a huge problem, that we have is the building of a ship and all of the issues that come with building a ship that would be capable of taking a crew to Mars. Um, so, Sandy, if you can go on to the next one. Now, the one of the
Just
biggest issues,
taking
of
it
course,
in.
with any mission to Mars is radiation from above or solar and cosmic. And those are two different, and that's why this diagram has here. Those are two different types of radiation, solar and cosmic radiation. So, obviously, astronauts are going to be exposed, have prolonged exposures to radiation on this mission. uh, in fact, they will be exposed to radiation immediately upon leaving the exosphere of Earth. That's the outer atmosphere of Earth. And then the last shield of protection, planetary protection that astronauts have is the magnetosphere, okay, which is produced by our iron core, because it rotates, produces a magnetic sphere shield from solar wind and radiation. And remember, most astronauts are operating right at the top of the Earth's atmosphere in low Earth orbit and well within the magnetosphere, okay?
Okay. Hmm.
Um, and so they're being, you know, very much well protected. Even in the moon, if you're on the moon, you'd be somewhat protected by the magnetosphere, blocking solar radiation and cosmic radiation. And these things are very, very dangerous and deadly. So leaving the magnetosphere would immediately pose danger to any human venturing outside of the Earth's magnetospheric influence. You would receive about a year's worth of radiation. So if you were to leave the magnetosphere, it would be like having an entire year's worth of radiation if you're on the ground on Earth. That's just if you leave.
How far
Now,
is the moon? How far is the
well,
moon?
so I forget exact. I should have looked up the
But it's
miles on.
not outside of the magnetosphere.
No, it's not.
No. So we're okay. And the only thing we've sent, and I'm just clarifying, is the little rover. Okay, I'll go back to my corner. I just had to
Good.
get that idea of where the moon was. So that's basically as far as humans have gone. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. So we haven't really gone beyond the protection of the Earth, of our mother, so to speak. Um, and the amount of radiation that we would experience upon immediately doing that would be like having a year's worth of radiation. Okay, this would be in the first 24 hours of leaving the magnetosphere. Um, well, a mission to Mars, remember, takes 6 months there and 6 months back. And during this flight, you would be totally exposed to any solar and cosmic radiation that your ship wasn't able to immediately deflect, which means that on average, a human will experience zero point 0.5 SV units of radiation per year here on Earth at ground level. On a mission to Mars, you experience 150 to 200 SPV units of radiation, and this would just be on the trip there. Okay, this would be in flight.
Okay. But we're still always getting radiation. Just living, we are being radiated. So,
But here on Earth, we're protected in
yes.
large part because of the
Okay.
magnetosphere. We're
Mhm.
protected by our atmosphere. We're protected by the ozone layer, and so we're protected by all of this. Um, well, shielding, planetary shielding, which just isn't replicable on our ships. We don't have the
Right.
technology to reproduce the type of shielding necessary to go on these trips without taking in significant radiation dosage. Um, and this radiation
Scary.
would be impacting you every minute of every day. And it would be breaking down your DNA. It would be triggering cancers. It could be causing immune responses. There's a lot of different things that could possibly be happening to you as you're being exposed to this radiation from the universe and from the sun. And you'd be taking the full brunt of it. Um, next slide. And if that's not bad enough, astronauts would also be exposed to upon landing on Mars. The surface itself is a radioactive stew. And so the radiation that you'd be getting from the soil itself is 50 times that of which you'd be getting on Earth. 3 years of time on Mars, it would exceed the total time of exposure radiation that NASA allows for the lifetime of their astronauts. Um, so again, this is an extremely, extremely toxic
Yeah.
place to be. Um, the atmosphere is
Yeah.
completely unbreathable. The soil is incredibly toxic, and the reason why it's toxic because it has perchlorates, which is a type of chlorine salt, um, which makes the soils completely unusable for growing food, and even shielding. You
Well,
you can use
Antonio, I'm ready to book my ticket.
you can use the um, Martian regolith, the Martian soils, as shielding from the cosmic radiation, but you would still be suffering the internal radiation that's already in the soil. So really, this is terrible. The Martian atmosphere is about 100 times thinner than the Earth's atmosphere, and so even though you will land on Mars
Yeah.
and have considerably more radiation protection than you are when you just be traveling through the wilderness of space, you'll still be taking a significant amount of radiation exposure through the Martian air and then it radiating off of the ground as well. Um, So again, the Martian atmosphere is completely unbreathable. Temperatures are colder than Antarctica. The atmosphere is mostly composed of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and argon gas. Sandy, if you want to go to the next slide. And of
I'm
course, there's
there.
microgravity. Microgravity environments are extremely dangerous. Microgravity environments have can cause a number of different issues for the human body. Um, Microgravity environments cause loss of bone mass and muscle mass, kidney stones, blood clots, heart attacks, strokes, abnormal heart rhythm, blindness, brain injury from blood pressure buildup, immune system compromise. I mean, there's so many problems with
Yeah.
gravity environment, not to mention that it has massive effects on your ability to actually produce children, conceive, fertilization. Um,
Wow.
I mean, this is
Who
says
came
this
up
is
with the idea that we could go there? I mean, we sent the little thing there, the little rover thing, but that doesn't breathe. Shit. Eat. You know?
right. So, and that's the problem here is that sending a probe to Mars is
Wow.
entirely different than building a base. And building a base is
Wow.
entirely different than colonizing. And building a base is something I think that we could probably do in 100 or 200 or 300 years, an actual functional base. Not
300
just
years? Do you think we
well, I'm
have.
going to get into why I don't think a human mission is going to happen for a very long
Yeah.
time in a bit. But just focusing on the microgravity concerns, a
Yeah.
lot of people go like, "Well, kidney stones, it's not a big deal. Blood clots, this is not and or. You'll be having all of these problems simultaneously, and don't forget, you would also be dealing with the radiation and whatever sickness that will be causing. So, any astronaut that's going to be taking on this mission, this is what they're going to have to be dealing with. Um, Sandy, can we? I have a YouTube video of astronaut Scott Kelly after spending a year on the International Space Station. His return, his condition. Can we
All
see
right,
that? It's
where
less.
is it?
It's right there on the PowerPoint.
Okay, but I'm not going to be able to. Oh, wait. I'm going to copy it and put it in YouTube. All right,
Oh,
everybody, we're having a technical, not a difficulty. I'm pulling up this. We're going to get YouTube. Sorry, I'm going to talk us through it. This is like fascinating stuff, but I mean, we don't have 30 years. I don't know. I don't know. Do we have 30 years?
well,
I
even with
mean,
that's the thing is that even if it was
okay.
possible to
Is this
colonize
it?
Mars, this is
Is
it. Yeah, the
This
first
is
one.
it. All right, let
Yeah.
me make sure I've got the sound working. Activate sound. All right, guys. Let us see the first one. All right.
is
Hopefully we
spending
don't
a
get a
year on the space
copyright.
station. So we were both involved in experiments
Can you
to
hear it?
understand better how to keep people alive for longer periods of time in space. You start doing this right when you get out of the capsule. The idea is to measure your performance right when you get out of the vehicle. And let's say you landed on Mars, to try to understand what your physical capability is. You walk with your eyes closed, like foot to foot. which is hard even when you haven't been in space for a year, especially on this uneven ground of Kazakhstan. You get on an airplane, the airplane flies to Norway, and you do it there.
Remember, try to go hand to toe.
And then it gets back to Houston, and you do them here again before you even get to go home. You're doing these tests for weeks.
When do I do this again?
Wednesday.
What, like in 2 days, Wednesday?
Yes.
Eventually, you're doing them once a month. And it's a couple days every 6 months, which is where I'm at right now.
At 25?
What is this test measuring?
What, this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just the lab rat. I'm the guinea pig.
How we doing?
So, one of the points that Scott Kelly makes is that, when he gets done with these missions,
Welcome back, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen,
hang
I'm awfully
on.
excited
I
because
am
my
sorry.
next guest is a veteran NASA
he has
Well,
to
it
go
was NASA night on YouTube. Yeah.
months of physical therapy, once he returns back to Earth. And notice that when he returned back to Earth, him and his partner actually had to be carried out of the capsules. They had almost no use of their arms or legs. And it wasn't until days later than weeks later, that they actually started getting full. But it wasn't until months later they had to continue these therapies to regain full function. So think about this: the trip to Mars itself is 6 months, half of the time that Scott Kelly was out at the International Space Station. That's just the trip there. Okay, and if you'll go on to the next slide, Sandy.
Okay.
One of the challenges that you have to understand is that it's 6 months there, it's 6 months back. That's just the flight time. But because of the way the Earth and Mars orbit around the sun, there's a narrow window of opportunity that only occurs every 2 years, for which we have that 6 month duration, that flight, that window to make it from Earth to Mars. And so in total, the mission would be 3 years long. Okay, so look at what Scott Kelly looked like in low Earth orbit after 1 year.
A little crazy.
He can't even walk. Had to be helped by 4 different men out of the capsule. And again, think about this. This is a colony to Mars, folks. So these people astronauts are going to land, and what are they going to do when they land? They're going to need many, many months of physical therapy upon landing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
With radiation sickness. They'll be dealing with weakened hearts. They'll be dealing with immunocompromised bodies, malnutrition. They'll be socially retarded and irritable. Mission stress.
Perfect for the Martians.
And this is if everything goes right, right? Imagine if one of the engines on the way there, or one of the med bay malfunctions or something, or the onboard computers are fried. Think about that. The mission to Mars.
When you did the research, there's a lot of research here.
The mission to Mars, folks, is a suicide mission for any human for at least the next 1,000 years. Just one. I used to believe that we were going to be like Star Trek. I used to tell my friends just a few years ago, we're 100 away, we're 200 years away from going like Star Trek. No. That's just complete and utter folly. We are really not going to be traveling or inhabiting different planets or bodies amongst the stars. At best, we'll be able to do maybe a moon base. Maybe there will be some type of something on Mars, but the humans aren't going to be very much involved. I mean, just the time alone, 3 years.
3 years.
The longest mission in space has only been a year. Okay, and it's
Yes.
a year in a fairly protected environment.
In the
Okay,
space station,
right.
which is now in trouble because there's a war. And I heard or I read, so I think that the Russians are not going to be in the space station anymore.
Well, neither are the Chinese, and the Chinese are actually making
So
their
who's,
own.
yeah, this is
You
kind of
know,
wild.
things, and I don't want to poop on people's ideas and exploration of space because I think it's so important that humans venture out in space. But
You
people
do?
don't understand.
Yeah.
You know, NASA. The reason why NASA isn't leading a mission to Mars isn't because capitalism and Elon Musk and SpaceX are so much more efficient and better. It's because of there's
No,
real
they're not.
challenges. There are real challenges, and NASA has no idea how to overcome these challenges. And let me tell you something: neither does Elon Musk. The idea of building a ship that can
No. Sorry.
the idea of I mean, and the engineering is kind of the easy part, right? Building a tanker with enough chemical propellant to go to Mars is kind of the easy part. I mean, it's really, really hard, but that's
Building
kind of
it.
the easy part. But actually, humans landing on Mars is just completely
It's like, wee, crazy.
ridiculous because we have to first of all commit to being there for 2 years. Maybe if we could only be there for like a day or two or a few days, at most a month. Um, at most a month would be as long as ever you would want to be there. Maybe. But 2 years means that almost every single mission means that no humans are going to return to Earth.
Well, that was a comment T-Bone made about before I got his comment. It was I have to put it up. Oh, there's a coming back part. I beg to differ on the coming back part.
There
Thank you,
is, there is
T-Bone.
no, there is no. Well, the ships might come back. Elon Musk has the ability for the AIs and the ships. They will be returning with
uh,
dead humans. I can't, and I thought about this. I even asked some friends that were more in the space than I am. I mean, really, the people who've thought about this is why NASA doesn't really have a human mission to Mars, because there's just no way. The immense amount of radiation that humans will have to take just on the flight there alone will likely kill them if it was possible to get them back to Earth. So the idea, I mean, in the humans who land, these would be radiation sickened, immunocompromised, extremely irritable, malnourished, decrepit. I mean,
you
they're
mean
not.
like we got during the pandemic?
I mean, it 10 times worse. This would be.
I don't mean I'm not laughing at you, I'm just finding this all amusing. It's just very different.
Well,
We've never really gone into space before, Antonio.
because the stories that were kind of told around this are
Yeah.
very different. The graphics that you even showed in your opening of these
Yeah.
beautiful
Yeah, that
futuristic
was fun
developments,
making it.
I mean, are but really it's completely out of the loony bin. I mean, these things are completely detached from the realities that we face in any type.
Loony bin. I'm looking for a loony bin sound.
Sandy, can you go to the next slide for us?
I sure can. You did a
So
beautiful job.
the issue here is that the general framework is that Earth itself is 4.2 to 4.6 billion years old. Yet humanoids had only been on this planet for about 3 million years. And of that 3 million, modern humans, Homo sapiens sapien, is only about 150 to 250 years old. And so that means literally our collective human evolution represents less than 1%. It actually represents 0.065% of the total time that Earth has been around. And that means something. That doesn't mean, well, by happenstance, coincidence, um, humans just happen to appear at the end. No, 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 no. Conditions were right for us only 0.065% of the time that Earth has been around. That's why we were able to be here. You know,
Like a
and
crapshoot? Like a crapshoot.
like
There you
like a crap.
go. Yep.
I mean, humans have to realize that, even planet Earth is extremely dangerous for us. We were only allowed to evolve during very specific conditions, for which now we are completely destroying with the climate crisis. But this is why we're not going to be able to develop Mars. I mean, I ask people, do you think we don't even have a colony in Antarctica? The idea. So if we can't colonize Antarctica, which the atmosphere is breathable. I don't know if people know that the atmosphere is breathable in Antarctica. The air
They were,
atmosphere.
though. They were building one in. Oh no, it was in Antarctica. That was the Russian Arctic. They were building. They were, and they have stopped. The Russians have stopped right now. They're not building, but Antarctica, yeah,
Think about how hard and think about how expensive our scientific bases are in those places. You
yeah.
know,
But
uh,
we learn a
like
whole lot more about our planet than I think doing the Mars things. But I'm not anti-space. I don't know what I am. I would love to see something happen. I don't
problem.
have any hopium to fix this planet.
Well, that's the problem though, is that there is literally no other choice. There is no other choice. This idea that we're going to build space habitats, completely lunatic. Idea that we're going to, live on Mars, completely lunatic. The only possibility is that we'll
Oh
live
my
here.
god.
That's the only foreseeable possibility for us for hundreds, if not thousands of years. I mean, we would have to develop um, technologies, anti-gravity technology. We would have to terraform Mars. We would have to do biological engineering and enhancements. I mean, we would literally have to be a different species. We would have to change Mars itself. I mean,
Well, we would
the,
have to no, we would have to start doctors now if you want to get really freaky. Doctors would have to start developing mechanisms by which change DNA to be radiation resistant. Come on. I mean, this is science fiction, really.
it
Yeah.
was that's the sort of things that you would have to do if you wanted to make Mars even 1% the
Right, a good
habitability of.
yeah. Why don't we
And
just fix the planet we have?
it's so much easier. So I just wanted, and I wanted to do this because there's this idea that I've seen in our community where people are, well, maybe we can afford to invest some intellectual capital into this idea
Oh.
of colonizing Mars just in case
Yeah.
things don't work out here. And I just want people to absolutely that not only is that a suicide mission, it's complete fantasy. It doesn't exist in reality. If you can show me an anti-gravity device, I'll say, okay, we have some chance of doing some civilization on Mars. If you can't show me anti-gravity, if you can't show me biological enhancements that have humans breathing an atmosphere that doesn't have any oxygen, if you can show me a way that human bodies can resist 250 times the amount of solar radiation that we're exposed to here on Earth on the ground. I mean, this is just it's just absolutely absurd. And then another thing that people don't realize is that humans are not gods.
Humans are not gods. Yes. We
Okay,
think we
so
are.
you can't just take an organism, an individual organism, and throw it in a sterile environment. Okay, so humans exist in ecosystems. and as a part of ecosystems. And so the idea that humans are going to be able to somehow develop or produce these ecosystems, are there going to be animals on Mars? How are we going to get our protein? Are plants going to grow well
Oh
on
my
Mars?
god.
You know, there's
Yeah.
serious with this. Another
I
problem that
I
I'm
know.
researching is that there are dormant viruses and bacteria in our bodies, in everybody's bodies, that have no impact on us right now. But NASA's been doing studies and they found that microgravity environments and space radiation can activate a lot of these dormant viruses and bacteria.
Oh, that's another pleasant aspect of this whole thing.
So that's the thing. So you may not even know. Think about this. You might be on a mission. You might be on a. Let's say in some fantasy future, 100 years, 200 years from now, we build a ship where there's 100 people crew, and everybody's healthy, everybody's fine, everybody's done their test. Well, 4 months into the 6 month journey to Mars, everybody starts to realize their immune systems are completely weak and compromised. And then you start realizing someone's getting violently sick. Well, how did someone get sick if nobody was sick on? Well, it turns out that there was a bacteria or virus that was dormant. But now that you're in this self-contained shuttle with a bunch of immunocompromised people, 90% of the crew ends up dead before you even land. I mean, these are the type of scenarios. These are the type of scenarios that you're going to have to really deal with. I mean, how are you even prepared? How are you going to prepare for something like that? How are you going to
Oh,
prepare for the that you have a dormant bacteria or virus in your body that's only going to be activated when you're on the flight?
well, I think that what you're talking about translates into some kick-ass Netflix movies because
You
it
know,
just
problem with it is that you know movies about space have really confused us about how difficult space
ah,
really is.
there you go. See?
You
It's
know,
that
uh, the Martian,
manufactured.
for example, with who was that? Matt Damon, the Martian.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, it's this idea that
Wish I could pull it
he's
up.
growing potatoes in the Martian regolith. If he ate those potatoes, he would die hours later. I mean,
Oh, there's a
he would.
comment out here on it. Jim Henry, potatoes and shit. Yeah, that's right. I know the movie.
Maybe that's possible on Earth, but to grow, I mean, the roots of any vegetable that would be even capable of growing in the Martian regolith, in the Martian soil, would be absorbing all of that chlorine, salt, and you'd just be eating extremely toxic foods. I mean, it would be extreme. No, there would be again this idea of humans settling on Mars just isn't the best chance that we have is to develop some sort of anti-gravity device and to dig
Yeah.
huge cave networks underground that are completely windowless caverns. I mean, why would you want to live that way? Why wouldn't you, if you're trying to do that, then we should do that here. We could dig underground and live underground
Are
here.
you having this conversation with friends that you are trying to enlighten as to the fact that that shit is not real, dude?
It's not just friends. This conversation is so rampant in the doomer community. Is that I mean there are a lot of doomers who are I think very well aware that it is nonsense, but there's a good portion of doomers who think that there's a possibility that maybe if we had the technology right, that we could possibly do this. And I just
Really?
really want to get that out of
Wow.
people's heads that solving the climate crisis, which I think is in of itself a impossible feat, is so much easier than developing a colony for 100 people on Mars.
Okay. I'll take it. Yeah.
um,
I
so
think you've
that's
proved it.
the reality. Do I got another slide, Sandy?
Yeah, this has been really good. I mean, I'm learning. You definitely opened my mind to things I do not ever think about. Space. This was cool.
So, crashing back to planet Earth. The mission to colonize Mars is likely to fail. The mission to Mars is likely to fail. The idea that humans escaping the Earth, setting up shop upon another planet is utter fantasy and detached from reality of humanism and our place in the universe. It's here, possibly just here, our one and only home, planet Earth.
Our beautiful planet Earth.
So, with that being said, so I have one more, the takeaways. If you want to flip to the takeaways, Sandy. My personal belief is that I don't think that we are going to have a human settlement on Mars. I don't think there's going to be a European colonization of America, so to speak, on Mars. I don't think that's going to be something that's going to happen, certainly not within our lifetime or anybody's lifetime who is going to be directly related to your bloodline is going to see.
Yeah, Antonio, um, a lot of people do talk about with the climate crisis and the chaos, small pockets of people making it or living, but of course, there's that nuclear question and the nuclear power
Right.
plants. So that's even if we are habitable on Earth, if there's no one to take care of the nuclear power plant. So wow, radiation is definitely something on here also to think about. But all those little pockets of people, they're not going to want to go to Mars. They're going to want to solve what's going on in their life. When the shit, if a methane starts leaking, and I mean we're already at what 422 ppm. We're getting hotter. We're having fires.
Well,
We're having India's sweltering.
and this
And people
also meant
really think we're going to go to Mars?
this is meant to punch the billionaires in the face too, because it is just delusion, right? There's
Yes.
not there's not a plan B to go to or to do. Um, it's just here. I mean, it really is just here. And it's kind of, and at best, if we did have a Mars base, that Mars base would only exist if there is a habitable Earth that could continue to
Yeah.
supply resources upon resources upon resources. And the humans, again, would have to be getting off of that. So, again, I don't want to say that a base is impossible because I do believe in the future humans are going to develop spacecraft with nuclear engines or things like that where we won't have to be limited by the orbital patterns of Earth and Mars. We'll be able
When is that
to.
going to happen?
I think that's something that could happen in the next 50 to 100 years. Um,
So you think that do you think that the billionaire class is going to make it through the jet stream changing and all the wonky
this
things
is
that are
assuming
coming up?
this is assuming if there were no climate crisis,
Ah.
how much space
Oh.
exploration of colonization of Mars could we do if we had no climate crisis? I
That's
think
that's a
without a
fun
climate crisis,
fantasy.
it would still take about 50 to 100 years for us to develop the appropriate engines where we could um, do something like go to Mars and leave and go back anytime that we want it and not be limited by the orbitations of the planets. Um,
Right.
this is hard stuff because it's not just
It's
about
very
getting
hard
there.
stuff.
People don't realize, when you're in a spaceship, speed is not always your friend, because you can't just put on the brakes. So getting to Mars really, really fast can be really, really bad if you can't slow down. So
Yeah. I have a question in your studies for this. and I'm sure you've been interested in this for a while. How many people, all right, we'll start with Americans. How many Americans are involved in the space program that specifically study, in any way, contribute to a Mars thing?
Oh, there's so much because it's so, in terms of space disciplines, it's so intersectional, right? So you'll have scientists that, for example, will just read or study on microgravity, the effects of microgravity on the body, and then they'll
Yeah,
apply that to, well, Mars is this big relative to the Earth, this is how much gravity it has, so this is what we'd expect this type of microgravity environment to have on the human body, as opposed to, because those are different microgravity environments, right? A microgravity environment in low Earth orbit is a different type of microgravity environment on Mars. Mars has more gravity than low Earth orbit, but these type of different microgravity environments are going to impact the human body negatively,
right.
differently. So we'll have contributions, things like that. And then you have people who generally study, well, what are the impacts of cosmic radiation on cellular biology? What's the impacts of solar wind on cellular biology? What's the impacts of these chlorplate, chlorine salts on the human body? And so there's so many different fields where you have direct commissions from NASA that look at specific questions, but then they have to kind of interdisciplinary take in all of these auxiliary questions to try to answer
Wow. It's
the
a big
type of issue.
organization. And,
So,
and,
so
and
think about that.
yeah,
So there's a
I'm
million different
thinking about it.
there's a million different questions that a NASA team has to ask specifically in regards to a ship, just making a ship. Then there's a million different questions that they have to ask about the trip there. Then there's a million different questions they have to ask about the landing. There's a million different questions they have to ask about the health of each individual crew. I mean, there's a million different questions for every single thing on the mission. You know, um, and that's why people are jumping the gun on this, really don't realize how difficult this is. um, One of my friends said, well, Antonio, water is actually a good radiation shielding. I said, you know how thick a water shield would need to be on a spaceship
You gonna
in
wear a
order to,
water suit?
so the water shielding, if
Wow.
you're going to into the
Yeah,
walls, you
yeah.
said building walls and shit. I said the walls would have to be 2 feet thick at least. 2 feet. Think about how impossible it would be even to lift a ship off the ground if you had to make the walls 2 feet thick. And water is a very dense material. So I mean, so this
Uh,
is complete fantasy. He says, "Oh well, we'll use lead. Lead's even more dense than water."
oh,
So these ideas, people just really haven't thought about the challenges that exist.
but you're having conversations with people on this, definitely. Wow. I
Excuse me.
have to laugh. We have to play this one. Jim McHenry, Space Force, the last job you will ever have. I really feel bad. I'm laughing, but I'm so amused by the whole topic. Although it's so serious and so expensive when there are so many problems that we have.
Isn't the other thing too?
I
Is
mean,
that it is
socioeconomic people are fucking poor, and you're fucking around with all this money for this stuff we'll never ever do. Sorry.
now there are some. The mission to Mars again is completely ridiculous. Now this is separate than space exploration. We should be putting satellites into space. We should be
Well, yeah,
learning
that's
what
what
the
we're
James
here with. We're here
providing
with
us.
the yeah, we're here with the satellites because of satellites me and you, and that helps. That's weather. That's something we're
Yeah,
already doing in our grass. That's not going to another planet like that.
right. And honestly, I think this would be a cool. Once I realize how difficult and how impossible this is going to be, I realize this isn't a very expensive bridge to nowhere. We really can't afford any resources to play around with this, just because there's nothing immediately beneficial that's going to come out of doing this We
No.
can't use those resources to actually be doing something good with.
I mean, there
Uh,
are immediately beneficial things that every country could be doing for their people and for their animals and for the planet that are not being done. Instead, you know, instead it's military
I,
and it's wars
I,
and it's
no matter how bad the
shit.
climate crisis gets, Earth will be, even with the radiation crisis and nuclear meltdown, Earth will be a lot more habitable than Mars. Okay, so this that's the challenge that we have to face here, is that our human bodies evolved specifically to live on Earth and nowhere else. Not on the moon, not in low Earth orbit, not on Mars. Um,
Yes, I think you've done a good job at educating us about space. I hope you can use this presentation perhaps for show it to somebody else that may be putting effort into this whole area when there might be something else they can do,
and
so
it's so sad
yeah.
because this is people's. It's kind of like a dream. Who wants to ruin someone's dream? Like the idea of going to Mars is so
We
cool.
ruin someone's stream 3 times a week on this channel. I mean, what can I say? What can I
Once
say?
I saw the video, and that wasn't the video I wanted to show. The video
Oh,
that
it wasn't?
yeah, the one I saw was a while ago, and I couldn't find it again. But I showed you that one instead.
Oh,
But the one I saw originally of Scott Kelly was really good because it was showing him, I think, a few days after he got back from his mission. He just could not walk, and I was just thinking to myself, this video alone, even if the air was breathable on Mars, even if there wasn't
yeah.
the radiation, just the gravity issue alone, and like what can anybody in that condition do other than lay there and
Colonize.
do nothing? And this is going. And the problem is, this would happen to every single human body on the trip there.
It gives
So it's
me
just like,
chills. It's just
even if
crazy.
humans did go to Mars, and your ship did, miracly, in a miracle land, and you got off of your ship, you would literally be close to a
Okay, Jan.
vegetative
Yeah. Yeah.
paralysis. You wouldn't be able to assist, and you certainly wouldn't be doing any lab experiments or I mean, that
I'm sorry.
all of that here's what would happen on a perfect
Uh,
Mars.
yeah.
On a perfect mission to Mars, what would happen is the astronauts would land, and they would have to immediately go to the med bay for
Mhm.
extreme medical procedures. And then by the time that they're done with their procedures, it'll be time to go back home. And then they would have to, that would be it. Like, there will be no human activity on Mars other than, like, going to the med bay to take a bunch of meds and
Oh,
rehab
jeez.
just to get ready to
Okay.
go back to Earth. That's it.
Well,
You're not going to be
I'm
digging.
gonna look the movie up.
You're
I
not
think
going to
you
be
have
digging
a future in
around, or
screenwriting.
you're not going to be hopping around or driving rovers. You're not going to be doing any of that. You're really not. You're going to be, and even if you did do that, if you did do that, you'd be on the surface and you'd be
Yeah.
getting maximum radiation exposure.
God.
So you would not want
Uh,
to be rovers around on the surface of Mars or
no.
hopping around in a little spacesuit. You wouldn't be doing any of that.
Well, let me tell you what Rich said. Hello, Rich. Rich said, okay, look, Antonio, you've convinced me on Mars. So let's talk Venus. It's ripe for the taking. Thank you.
I was going to make is that Mars is actually probably the easiest and best planet to colonize if that was
Right.
going to be possible. And that's crazy because it's completely impossible. So every other body in the solar system is completely way out of off the table in terms of colonizing. So it really is.
Ah,
I mean, it really is just a.
actually, I interviewed this guy a long time ago. I think it was like 2018. He lived up in the woods. He lived off grid, and he sat down and told me this whole thing about colonizing an asteroid. That was in 2018. I had never heard of anything like that. Then I did find out that people were looking at, oh, okay, how can we mine asteroids for the things we need to go on, but
I want
is there
people to
a
think
whole
about this.
asteroid movement out there, Antonio?
I want people to think about it like this. Okay, the frontier of it took us. We've been operating human civilization for 10,000 years, and we haven't perfected civilization. We just started our space exploration 60 years ago.
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we really, it's going to be something like that before we really start the ideas that we're talking about today, before they start coming to fruition. It's going to literally be
Oh,
10,000 years before we start seeing. And the technologies that would exist at the time are, like I say, they're completely beyond our ability to imagine today. So that's why it's even hard for me to think about when would be able to do these things, because the technologies necessary to do them are so beyond my imagination, or really anything I've seen or read, that
yeah,
it's just not
they
real
are.
about it in our time.
Well, everybody, I think this has been quite a talk. I let me see if we have any more comments. I mean, the whole chat's just a buzz with this one. Tony, would you rather set out for Mars as in an old Toyota wagon or a new Tesla?
Right. Well, then Elon must already shoot Tesla in space. So there you go.
Oh, I've laughed a lot tonight, and not at you. Trust me, just at the absurdity of life, of this. And you've researched it, so you see it. Now you have ammunition to teach someone else, reach one and teach one that this ain't the way.
I
But
was on the side of this just not that long ago. I was on the
well, you're
side of,
young, Antonio.
look at what SpaceX is doing, look at the
Yeah.
Starship, and look at the Artemis project, and there's so much excitement. And of course, I think we should continue with those endeavors, but also there needs to be an injection of realism that, Elon Musk is kind of like this crazy personality right now. I saw his response to, he was asked a serious question about the radiation issue, and he said, "I don't think it's as big of a problem as people think." And I'm just
Okay.
like, uh,
Yeah.
"Okay, you get on the ship."
Yeah, you get on the ship, bud. All right, sweetie. We're an hour and three. Guys, there's a lot of comments, and you've had a really good conversation out there. Antonio, I thank you for putting so much into this to educate us on things that, at least on this channel, frontier. I should have gotten William Shatner out to a new frontier that we don't know, we don't discuss. So it's been really interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was important
Thanks.
because,
It
and
is.
the last thing I'll say is because it ties into the environmental movement, because it focuses back on, I think, what we should be focused on in the first place, and that's
Oh,
Earth.
there you go. I didn't even have a
Everyone's
toilet
here.
flush through for this one. You got it though. That one gets the gong. We get the gong on that one. Holy shit. All right, sweetie. Good night, everybody. I think I'm going to end. A lot of you didn't see the video. I think I'm going to end taking you into space. Don't forget to like. We have the coffee cup on Buy Me a Coffee. I've sent out coffee cups, and some of you may have already gotten them. Antonio, you need to send me your address. But this was great. Rich Diana said, excellent presentation, Antonio. It was. It was really,
Thank
I
you.
learned so much that I wasn't prepared to learn this tonight. And so,
Yeah.
and laugh at it. And I mean, now it's like another whole rabbit hole. You've got me interested in. So when I've got my headphones out there gardening, I'll think of you, Antonio, when I'm listening to a space video. All right, everybody, good night. Thank you all. And I'm going to end then with the starting video. Why not? Enjoy it.